Explore the fascinating journey of America's presidents in this comprehensive overview. From the founding fathers to modern-day leaders, witness the triumphs, challenges, and defining moments that shaped each presidency. Join us as we delve into the legacies of all 46 presidents of the United States, spanning from George Washington to Joe Biden. George Washington, 1789 to 1797. The first president of the United States, George Washington led the nation through its formative years following the Revolutionary War. He established many precedents for the office, including the two-term limit, and focused on establishing a strong federal government and setting the course for the new nation's future. John Adams, 1797-1801. A Federalist, John Adams served as the second president. His presidency was marked by challenges in foreign relations, particularly with France, which he managed to navigate without war through diplomacy. Adams also signed into law the controversial Alien and Sedition Acts. Thomas Jefferson, 1801-1809, known for his role as the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson's presidency was characterized by the Louisiana Purchase, which vastly expanded the territory of the United States. He also commissioned the Lewis and Clark expedition to explore the newly acquired lands. James Madison, 1809-1817, often referred to as the father of the Constitution, James Madison's presidency was dominated by the War of 1812 against Britain. Despite initial setbacks, Madison successfully led the nation through the conflict, and his presidency saw the signing of the Treaty of Ghent, ending the war. James Monroe, 1817-1825. During James Monroe's presidency, known as the Era of Good Feelings, the Monroe Doctrine was declared, establishing America's influence in the Western Hemisphere. Monroe also oversaw the acquisition of Florida from Spain and presided over a period of relative peace and prosperity. John Quincy Adams, 1825-1829, the son of John Adams. John Quincy Adams was a diplomat and Secretary of State before becoming president. His administration focused on internal improvements, such as roads and canals, and he negotiated the Adams-Onis Treaty with Spain, acquiring Florida for the United States. Andrew Jackson, 1829-1837, known as Old Hickory and champion of the common man, Andrew Jackson's presidency saw the forced relocation of Native American tribes through the Indian Removal Act, including the tragic Trail of Tears. He also faced down the nullification crisis and promoted Jacksonian democracy. Martin Van Buren, 1837-1841. Martin Van Buren faced the economic challenges of the Panic of 1837 during his presidency. He implemented the independent treasury system and dealt with the consequences of Jackson's policies, including the Trail of Tears and the expansion of slavery into new territories. William Henry Harrison, 1841. William Henry Harrison's presidency was the shortest in history, lasting only 31 days before his death. A war hero, Harrison's campaign slogan, Tippecanoe and Tyler too, highlighted his military exploits, and his vice president John Tyler succeeded him in office. John Tyler, 1841-1845. John Tyler, the first vice president to succeed to the presidency. Due to the death of a president, faced challenges in his presidency regarding the annexation of Texas. His administration successfully annexed Texas, a move that would later contribute to the Mexican-American War. James K. Polk, 1845-1849. James K. Polk's presidency was defined by his ambitious agenda known as the Manifest Destiny. During his single term, Polk oversaw the annexation of Texas, the Oregon Treaty with Britain, and the Mexican-American War, which resulted in significant territorial gains for the United States. Zachary Taylor, 1849-1850, a hero of the Mexican-American War, Zachary Taylor's presidency was cut short by his death after just 16 months in office. While in office, Taylor opposed the spread of slavery into newly acquired territories, causing tensions within the nation. Millard Fillmore, 1850–1853. Millard Fillmore assumed the presidency after Taylor's death. He supported the Compromise of 1850, which attempted to settle disputes over the expansion of slavery, and he also played a role in opening Japan to Western trade through the Kanagawa Treaty. Franklin Pierce, 1853–1857, Franklin Pierce's presidency was marred by the escalating tensions over slavery, particularly with the passage of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which repealed the Missouri Compromise and led to violent clashes in Kansas known as Bleeding Kansas. James Buchanan, 1857–1861. James Buchanan faced increasing sectional tensions during his presidency, ultimately leading to the outbreak of the Civil War shortly after he left office. Buchanan struggled to address issues such as slavery and secession, and his presidency is often criticized for its failure to prevent the nation's descent into war. Abraham Lincoln, 1861–1865. Perhaps the most consequential president in American history, Abraham Lincoln led the nation through the Civil War, preserving the Union and ultimately abolishing slavery with the Emancipation Proclamation and the passage of the 13th Amendment. His Gettysburg Address and second inaugural address are among the most famous speeches in American history. Andrew Johnson, 1865–1869. Andrew Johnson became president following Lincoln's assassination and faced the daunting task of reconstruction after the Civil War. Johnson's lenient approach towards the former Confederate states clashed with the more radical Republicans in Congress, leading to his impeachment, though he was acquitted by one vote. Ulysses S. Grant, 1869–1877, a celebrated Union general during the Civil War, Ulysses S. Grant's presidency was marked by Reconstruction efforts in the South and attempts to protect the rights of newly freed slaves. However, his administration was also plagued by corruption scandals, tarnishing his legacy. Rutherford B. Hayes, 1877–1881. Rutherford B. Hayes's presidency is notable for its controversial election, which was decided by a special congressional commission following the disputed results of the Electoral College. His administration marked the end of Reconstruction with the withdrawal of federal troops from the South. James A. Garfield, 1881. James A. Garfield's presidency was tragically cut short by his assassination just 4 months into office. While his tenure was brief, Garfield advocated for civil rights for African Americans and supported civil service reform. Chester A. Arthur, 1881–1885, Chester A. Arthur assumed the presidency after Garfield's death and surprised many by championing civil service reform, culminating in the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act, which established a merit-based system for government employment. Grover Cleveland, 1885–1889. Grover Cleveland became the first Democrat to be elected president since before the Civil War. His presidency was marked by his commitment to fiscal conservatism, vetoing numerous bills for pork barrel spending, and his handling of the Pullman strike, which saw federal troops intervene to restore order. Benjamin Harrison, 1889–1893. Benjamin Harrison's presidency saw the passage of the Sherman Antitrust Act aimed at curbing monopolistic practices and the McKinley Tariff, which raised tariffs to protect American industry. He also presided over the Pan-American Conference, aimed at fostering closer ties between the nations of the Western Hemisphere. Grover Cleveland, 1893–1897. Cleveland returned to the presidency for a second non-consecutive term, facing the economic turmoil of the Panic of 1893. His handling of the crisis, including repealing the Sherman Silver Purchase Act, contributed to an eventual recovery from the Depression. William McKinley, 1897–1901, William McKinley's presidency saw the United States emerge as a world power following the Spanish-American War, which resulted in the acquisition of territories such as Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. He also presided over a period of economic growth and prosperity. Theodore Roosevelt, 1901–1909. Theodore Roosevelt, a champion of progressive reform, pursued an aggressive agenda known as the Square Deal, which aimed to regulate big business, protect consumers, and conserve natural resources. His administration oversaw the construction of the Panama Canal, passage of significant antitrust legislation, and establishment of numerous national parks and forests. William Howard Taft, 1909–1913. William Howard Taft, Roosevelt's chosen successor, continued many of his predecessor's progressive policies, including trust-busting and conservation efforts. Taft's administration also emphasized dollar diplomacy, using economic influence to advance American interests abroad. Woodrow Wilson, 1913–1921. Woodrow Wilson's presidency was dominated by his efforts to keep the United States out of World War I, but ultimately he led the nation into the conflict. Wilson's 14 points outlined his vision for a post-war world, and he played a key role in the creation of the League of Nations, though the U.S. Senate ultimately rejected American membership. Lyndon B. Johnson, 1963–1969. Lyndon B. Johnson, thrust into the presidency after Kennedy's assassination, championed civil rights legislation, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. His Great Society programs aimed to eradicate poverty and improve education and healthcare, though his presidency was overshadowed by the Vietnam War, which escalated during his tenure. Richard Nixon, 1969–1974. Richard Nixon's presidency was marked by both significant accomplishments and scandal. He pursued a policy of détente with the Soviet Union and opened relations with China, but his administration became embroiled in the Watergate scandal, leading to his resignation in 1974, making him the only president to resign from office. Gerald Ford, 1974–1977. Gerald Ford became president following Nixon's resignation and faced the daunting task of restoring trust in government. He granted Nixon a full pardon for any crimes he may have committed, which was controversial at the time. Ford also dealt with economic challenges, including inflation and unemployment. Jimmy Carter, 1977–1981. Jimmy Carter's presidency was marked by both domestic and foreign policy challenges. He negotiated the Camp David Accords, securing peace between Israel and Egypt, but struggled with economic issues such as stagflation and the energy crisis. His administration was also overshadowed by the Iranian hostage crisis, which lasted throughout much of his presidency. Ronald Reagan, 1981–1989. Ronald Reagan's presidency was characterized by his conservative policies, known as Reaganomics, which emphasized tax cuts, deregulation, and increased military spending. He played a key role in ending the Cold War, overseeing a buildup of U.S. military strength and engaging in negotiations with Soviet leaders. Reagan also survived an assassination attempt in 1981. George H.W. Bush, 1989–1993. George H.W. Bush's presidency saw the end of the Cold War and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. He led a coalition in the Gulf War, liberating Kuwait from Iraqi occupation. Despite his foreign policy successes, Bush faced criticism for his handling of domestic issues, including a struggling economy and breaking his "Read My Lips, No New Taxes" pledge. Bill Clinton, 1993–2001. Bill Clinton's presidency was marked by economic prosperity and social change. He presided over a period of sustained economic growth and balanced budgets, as well as the passage of welfare reform and the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. However, his presidency was tarnished by the Monica Lewinsky scandal, which led to his impeachment by the House of Representatives. George W. Bush, 2001–2009. George W. Bush's presidency was defined by the September 11th terrorist attacks, which led to the War on Terror and the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. His administration also implemented controversial policies such as the Patriot Act and the establishment of Guantanamo Bay detention camp. Bush faced criticism for his handling of Hurricane Katrina and the financial crisis of 2008. Barack Obama, 2009-2017. Barack Obama made history as the first African-American president. His presidency saw the passage of the Affordable Care Act, often referred to as Obamacare, which aimed to expand access to health care. Obama also implemented economic stimulus measures to address the Great Recession and oversaw the operation that led to the killing of Osama bin Laden. Donald Trump, 2017-2021. Donald Trump's presidency was marked by his populist and nationalist agenda, including tax cuts, deregulation, and a crackdown on immigration. He appointed 3 justices to the Supreme Court and implemented protectionist trade policies, renegotiating trade deals such as NAFTA. His presidency was also characterized by controversy and division, including 2 impeachments by the House of Representatives. Joe Biden, 2021 present. Joe Biden's presidency has focused on addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, implementing vaccination efforts and economic stimulus measures to aid recovery. He has also prioritized infrastructure reform, climate change action, and advancing racial equity initiatives.